Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with Moor Insights Strategy, and we are back for episode 12 of the Data Center Podcast. Gentlemen, we made it 11 episodes without getting canceled. I'm pretty excited about that, and let's see if we can go for 12 here. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, loving life. About to head to Dallas and see my Longhorns thump on the Sooners. So no jinx.
Well, wow. Who would have thought? You know, when I first moved to Austin, when I first moved to Austin, they had a really great football team, and then 10 years later, 10 straight years, it wasn't that good. But it's good to see. It's good to see the state rocking. With that,
they are back.
So, hey, if you're new to the Data Center Podcast, I have to ask you, what's wrong with you? And also, welcome. But we talk about imagine that, the top data center stories, themes, and data center edge. So we're talking compute, cloud, security, storage, networking, operations, data management, AI, quantum, and even more. I mean, can we pack one more buzzword in that? Do we need to bring Robert on now? And I don't think there's enough room for 5 people. But anyways, we're glad to have you. We have some pretty awesome stuff to talk about. We're talking about Intel Innovation Conference. We're talking Cisco and Splunk, big tie up there. Oracle, so many things they brought out the last couple weeks. Paul's going to take us through all his AI goodies, right? Hello AI, goodbye job. We're also going to talk quantum, like the value of 3 logical qubits, which I probably won't be saying a lot about because it's pretty heady and above my pay grade. We're going to talk about BlackBerry. Man, first time we talked about BlackBerry on here. First time business, security. I'm going to pull my BlackBerry out of my drawer. No, maybe I won't. And go from there. And finally, we're going to talk about Gigamon and Precryption. So, hey guys, let's dive in. Intel has been in the news a lot. We're going to be talking about Intel doubling down on core counts and AI. Matt, you want to lead that one?
Yeah. So to everybody's surprise, I mean, this was a big shocker. Intel talked about a whole lot about AI at Innovation. Who would have thunk, right?
I know, it's crazy.
Nobody's talking about AI these days. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but
I'm trying to get this guy. Sorry, guys. Don't worry about me. Okay.
The Brady Bunch.
I will say this about Gelsinger's Pat Gelsinger's keynote at Innovation. I felt like it was the most real world application of AI that was demonstrated on stage. A lot of really interesting keynotes get thrown out there about AI, and we go into theoretical and almost science fiction kind of storytelling. But I love the way he brought it to like everyday life, and he brought it along the entire portfolio from PCs to what they're doing, obviously in accelerators and all the news around FPGAs getting spun out, but also on the server side too. That was a fantastic element. But what I think really, and I mean this seriously, surprised everybody was the announcement of Sierra Forest, which they will launch. It's the 6th gen, but they're not going to call it 6th gen Xeon processor that will get launched or announced in December, and will start shipping next year, having 288 cores, single-threaded cores. Now, this is really significant for a couple of reasons. As everybody who follows processors knows, Intel has been kind of behind from a core count perspective relative to its competition, AMD, and the ARM ecosystem. Ampere is up to 192 now. So, and that's been in some ways, and not necessarily fairly so, a measure of where companies are on the innovation cycle with regard to CPUs. So, 288 cores, really big story. Single-threaded, also a very big story. This is going to do very well in the hyperscaler space. I'm kind of curious to see what they're doing from a power management perspective to assure that there is a consistency of performance across all 288 cores. Because if you can do that, it's easier to parallelize workloads, and guess what? You might have an inferencing part there as well. So really good part. I think it's a really bold move that they've made. And again, even if you're more into CPUs and silicon and say that's not the full measure of a CPU, which it's not, it definitely shows that the Intel innovation engine is back. I mean, this was a biggie. And Pat, I know you were in the audience as well. I don't know if you had any thoughts on what Pat Gelsinger was talking about.
Yeah. So first off, I want to clarify that I know this is the Data Center podcast, but this is about Xeon. Mm-hmm. And not about Core, and not about anything else that they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I have questions about memory bandwidth. I have questions about power, and I think that will sort this in. But what I loved was, they said that they had 144 cores, and then they said, oh, guess what? We have 288 now, and that's 576 threads. Most CSPs will turn that off. For most applications, particularly if they're paying by the VM. But no, it was exciting. It kind of reminded me of an Intel that, I knew 20 years ago, which, by the way, when I was in AMD, it was an Intel that I saw and I didn't like, but it's different now. But, and on the AI side, they're starting to get credibility, right? Starting to get a ton of credibility, in that they're winning business, on, I think it was 2 earnings ago, they said they had $1 billion in backlog just with Gaudi 2, and that doesn't include the stuff being accelerated on Xeon. So, I think they have some way to go. Paul, any quick takeaways from the conference? I know you were there.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really, really good. I enjoyed Pat's presentation too. The fact that they're going after the AI market pretty heavily, but they're going after it in a different way. Going after it in terms of using smaller systems to train and inference models, and that kind of looks like the way things are going to go. You compare training and inferencing with a 7 billion parameter model versus one with 175 billion, and there's a lot of difference, and it's a lot more manageable at the enterprise level. You don't have to have these huge models, so I think they're going to do well.
I see them along with NVIDIA and AMD as being a player out there, and I think it's going to be increasingly hard for the smaller companies who have burnt too much cash in this space. We saw Mythic go under. GraphCore, I think, is going to be in a cash crunch. Heck, some companies haven't even created a production chip yet, like TensTorrent. Yeah. But who knows? Maybe TensTorrent has watched their cash a lot. Grok is winning businesses at Department of Defense, places like this. And Cerebras has a super unique wafer scale. It's literally like 13 inches big, where they're putting memory and compute on the die itself. So I like to call it a cluster on a wafer, which is a very novel way to do that. But they're not selling chips; they're selling entire fleets of systems. But interesting stuff. It's great to see some competition and some other companies winning some business. So let's go to the next topic. Cisco and Splunk, big get together. Splunk, the king of observability and security, and Cisco, who has either the number 1 or number 2 security business out there on the planet. Depends on kind of how you count. Coming together. So maybe we'll start off with you. What's your take on this?
I was sitting in a pub in London. So I was in central London for Connected Britain when the news hit, and immediately, it wasn't a double down. It was a triple down on observability from Cisco's perspective. And what I mean by that is that they have been building a full stack observability platform for the last few years. And they've done that through a lot of acquisitions. So AppDynamics, that's the first down. and then Thousand Eyes. That's the second down, and Splunk being the triple down. And this is the largest acquisition target for Cisco in its history, $28 billion, Pat. So
big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. And, I'm going to take my victory lap on this. So about a month before the announcement, I wrote a Forbes article about companies to watch in observability. And guess who two of the three companies were in that article? Cisco and Splunk. So I'll take that victory lap. But this brings, tremendous depth, additional capability for Cisco as it continues to focus on its FSO platform. They're building net new capabilities out of its FSO platform. Just recently, they announced an application service that is aimed at mitigating and reducing risk for companies. But all in all, man, this acquisition, if it does get approved, it's going to reset the bar for observability from my perspective. But I know, Matt, you wanted to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with everything you said.
Everything? Literally
everything.
Is this the mutually agreeable club here? I want some.
Yes.
I want some arguments.
Screw you, Will. They quadruple down.
I'm just kidding, guys.
Quadruple down.
So here's what's here's my take on it a little bit. It's aligned, maybe kind of a little slightly different angle though. People forget Splunk has been around for a very long time. They were doing observability before it was called observability.
Yeah.
Truly, we had multiple names for this. And by the way, we were trying to achieve this stuff back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I was a product manager for a company where we were designing this, and AI Ops it wasn't called AI Ops, but anyway, I say that because this company, Splunk, has a huge legacy. This is not just about go get a bunch of data and figure out what's going on, right? Or just go get a bunch of data and kind of run analytics against it. This is about managing and delivering automation at scale across the enterprise for everything. You talk about full stack observability. This is infrastructure, this is application, this is networking, this is security, this is DevOps, DevSecOps. This is everything tied together. And when you look at the portfolio that Cisco has, AppDynamics is one, but they also have this thing called Insight, which is their management SaaS platform that they're trying to drive in market, right?
Mm-hmm.
This gives Cisco this to me is the realization of what AI Ops is going to be across the entire enterprise. If that's a big if, the integration goes to its full potential. And that is, it doesn't matter what servers you're running. It doesn't matter what networking gear you're running. It doesn't matter what storage you're running, or what apps you're running. You can do it all from one single platform. If you like I said, if you take these and allow these technologies to be integrated to their fullest potential. Even if you don't, it's a great story. But man, this I think this is more than just a kind of a game changer. I think this can really shift the entire industry. So
that's a good take. I hadn't even thought about Insight. I knew there was a reason we have you on this podcast.
That's it. I'll hang up right now.
That just ties the loose ends together on
just do the mic drop on that. It's interesting. I'm not saying I had anything to do with any of this, but I've had a lot of conversations with Chuck and their chief strategy officer at Cisco about what's your data play. And I know Insight, right? And I know Thousand Eyes, but I view those more as security plays. Sorry, not Insight. Insight's definitely a management play, but I always viewed Thousand Eyes as security. And pulling in this company really supersizes it. The key to this is going to be, I think, expanding it. A lot of people don't fully give Cisco credit for their go-to-market capabilities, but it's crazy, like how big of a footprint that these folks have. And I think it's a great move. And I can see the integration. I haven't heard talks about, maybe some contention on it. The observability market is pretty diversified. But again, the thing with regulators, it all depends on how they define the market, right? And how this stuff shakes out. Well, good stuff. Hey, let's move to one of our favorite topics. It seems like we're always talking about, and that's AI. So, as we've seen, one of the side conversations about AI is, is it going to reduce jobs? Is it going to be a job killer? Is it going to be a job creator? Paul, what's in your mind here?
Yeah, Goldman Sachs did a pretty good study on this. I mean, everybody's kind of tossing around, what the impact is going to be on job market and on companies and everything. But there's some interesting stuff here. Goldman Sachs is saying that generative AI could increase the global GDP by almost $4 trillion by 2030. And it represents about 5% of the overall growth during that period. So, and they've got another figure where I thought was interesting, I hadn't thought of it, is that the GDP boost is based on an estimate of the time savings from doing a faster content generation using generative AI and analysis. And just take this is for GDP growth. What you guys take a guess on how many hours you think that time savings could reach by say 2030 for our market?
I wouldn't even know where to start, Paul.
At least one, Paul.
Anyway, they said total time savings could reach 100 billion hours by 2030.
Wow.
And I think that's a pretty good impact. The biggest economic gains are projected in places probably likely retail, healthcare, education, finance, insurance, and those areas. And those account for about almost $1.5 trillion of the total generative AI impact. So it's going to have a significant impact. And they've also broke it down by region. Of course, U.S. and Western Europe are going to see a big chunk of it. And that was like $1.5 trillion in GDP gains by 2030. But China, not surprisingly, it could be one of the biggest single countries. It's almost $1 trillion impact on their GDP. So. Wow. And China's going after AI like crazy. So, in
There's
terms
so many ways to cut this, right? I mean, in Japan, we're not making enough babies to actually find enough people, at least in the not just in the Western world, just the more highly industrialized countries, United States, Japan's kind of tip of the spear. And they ironically, unsurprisingly, are leading robotics, right, into this. There's so many ways.
Really nice robots too.
Totally. and there's so many different ways to look at this. I remember in the late 80s when desktop publishing software was going to put everybody out of business.
Yeah.
And then I remember, when we moved from machine coding to languages like Fortran and Pascal, it was going to put everybody out of business or everybody out of work. And here we are 35 years later, we still don't have enough programmers. And what we did with creativity is we just made people who weren't as creative more creative. Like I can get on Dolly and put 3 French bulldogs on a show horse, right? And it comes back or I can create a logo, right? And I don't really have a creative bone in my body, which I think is obvious. So it's expanded. It's just made it more pervasive. Like everybody's a content creator now, right? Yeah. That's one way to look at it. And then the other way could be, what happened in the Midwest when we moved a lot of manufacturing jobs either overseas or to the South, where people lost their jobs. There were no new jobs because there was no business and there was no reskilling. And unsurprisingly, the Midwest in certain cities had the highest level of drug addiction, right? Of heroin addiction, right? I think another example was Web 1.0 with travel agents, stockbrokers. That was the first. And then from a content point of view, record stores, VHS rental, right, places where those got wiped out. I think for this next wave, it's going to be the sea of cubes. It's going to be accounts payable. It's going to be accounts receivable. It's going to be customer support.
Yeah.
I pray to God every night that AI is going to replace me, and I can just, be a pat bot. And then for the next 100 years, it's just going to regurgitate all the smart things I said and parse out the dumb things, and it'll learn on that. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm sure somebody's going to try to figure out to export your brain. Definitely history. I don't know if you guys have seen the amulet that you can wear that takes a recording of video and audio of everything that's said. It's kind of like a Google Glass, but it's around your neck.
Yeah.
By the way, the article that talked about that talked about people punching people in the face if they wear it, if they see them in the bar, kind of like they did with Google Glass. But no, it's something that I'm looking at. And by the way, at Moor Insights and Strategy, I'm looking at better ways to automate workflow with AI. I'm pretty excited about summarizations right now. Right, take a 100-page white paper and ask it to summarize it for me in 500 words or with bullet points. Or hey, take this PowerPoint and create a Word document, or take this Word document and create a PowerPoint. By the way, that doesn't work yet in any piece of software, but that's being promised right now. Guys, if you use Zoom AI Summary yet, it is freaking magical. I mean, it says every big block of conversation that had it, and then it lists the action items. And I would say it has about a 95% degree of certain. And what did we all used to do when we worked for big companies? There was always a scribe. Who's the scribe for this meeting?
Yeah.
Right. And then they would put all this stuff, and they would spend like 18 hours doing a summary with action items. They would send it out to people.
Yep.
I get an email from Zoom in about 5 minutes after the completion. It's not perfect, but you can go in and you can edit it, right? If it's not perfect. So anyways, great examples of that. And again, waiting for the day that I can be replaced by AI and have PatBot is going to be a great day.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's move forward. We're talking Oracle, man. Gosh, 5 years ago, you thought about Oracle, and it's just like, are they still going to be in business? Right. And here they are, freaking competitive IaaS. Enterprise SaaS. I mean, they're just doing that is growing 25% a quarter, and IaaS growing and competing with the AWSs of the world, growing 60% a quarter. Technically, they're the fastest growing major IaaS play on the planet. What's in the water there, Matt? Seriously, what's going on here?
I don't know, but I want some of it, whatever it is. Look at that. It's funny because this is Larry Ellison kind of personified, right? As you look at kind of what Oracle's doing. I did a piece, it was a couple months back, called The Transformation of Oracle. And it kind of talked about their transition from this dinosaur-like company that, lived on database royalties and kind of, and made a lot of money at it, to this company that really kind of has transitioned. It much like Microsoft did with Azure. It's incredible to watch them. It's fun. I was talking to our friend Steve Zavanek, and I said, "You guys are like watching my two kids when they were 8 and 6. I cannot keep up with everything you're doing and all the activity, and you don't want to take a nap. It drives me crazy." So really cool to watch. They had, as you mentioned, they had really strong earnings around the cloud. IaaS is just going through the roof. Major announcement with Microsoft a couple weeks back about Oracle Database, which is it's like Oracle Cloud, at customer. It's their on-prem offering. now being available in Azure as a fully instantiated Oracle service. So Oracle hardware, Oracle software that's able to tightly integrate with all of those Microsoft BI tools and other tools you might want. So really big play, really first, what I would call true multi-cloud stand-up that I've seen out there, meaning two clouds truly working together physically and virtually. Great story. And then they had a huge cloud world as well. And I know you covered some of it, Pat. Robert Kramer did around Oracle Database 23C and the Oracle and the vector search, but also on the HeatWave front as well, which is their database service, their MySQL database service, and kind of in-memory analytics. A lot of functionality built in vector, what they call vector store into that, which is a way to bring kind of privatize public LLMs for companies, so you can contextualize searches within a chat GPT, let's say, with this tool they've built into HeatWave. So, it democratizes, if you will, the LLM story for small businesses or for businesses that have a lot of data that's not in a huge data store. Really cool story. Lakehouse available at AWS. Just so much going on. I'm rambling a little bit because there's just, as I said, there's so much they are doing. It's hard to kind of summarize in 4 or 5 pithy sentences, but they are a company that's truly on the move, and I'm fascinated with the way they've been able to kind of change both their business and the perception that they have in the market.
Yeah, there were again, like I said, some times that I was wondering if what they were going to turn into. Microsoft turned the corner, coincident when Satya showed up. Now Satya didn't do everything there. He just showed up. He showed up at the right time, and he was running Azure, and he was a new face, and it made a lot of decisions, good decisions, and they turned the corner, and now they're the most valuable company out there. Or wait a second, isn't Apple? Apple was almost out of business, and look at them, and here we have Oracle kind of storming back, and kind of the coup de grace for me was when they put Exadata inside of Azure, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody puts somebody else's hardware in your own CSP, right?
No,
it just doesn't happen. So yeah, they're kicking butt here. Hey, let's move to the next topic here. We're going to swing back to security. By the way, Will has more swim lanes than anybody in the history of analysts, and he's crushing it in every single one of them. And Will, it's funny. I would always pay the challenge on you. Send you emails for briefings. You're like, okay, let's go on. Let's do this briefing. It's security.
Let's roll.
Right, I got networking. I got carrier services. I've got, hey, let's throw a little security. Throw some security on there.
Yeah.
As well. So what's going on here? BlackBerry, really?
Yeah. No, this is no longer the phone, the research in motion. I think before we got started, we were talking about the docudrama that's out right now. I think, Matt, you've watched it. I plan to watch it. But yeah, I've been spending time with BlackBerry over the past few years. And they're leveraging that brand equity and what they did with the most secure smartphone in the world, and really developing a full portfolio from a security solution standpoint. And so, the recent news this week is around how they are going to separate their IoT and security businesses. And what they're going to do, they're going to spin off the IoT business and do that through an IPO. And that sounds really similar to some news that Intel announced this week, right?
Yeah.
FPGA business. So, executives state that it's going to provide organizational agility and flexibility, and potentially the capability to sort of accelerate the roadmap. I mean, security is very, very competitive. And, but, I think it's interesting if you sort of read between the lines here, spinning off its IoT business and launching an IPO. I mean, obviously that's focused on, raising, money so that they can invest more in their IoT business. And, traditionally IoT has been a really tough haul from a monetization standpoint as well. So,
Yeah.
but I think, I think it's interesting. I think this could potentially accelerate what they're doing in security. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's fun to have you tuning in as well. And it's just amazing that BlackBerry, doesn't have any hardware anymore. They actually bought this security capability, and then they've kind of become a security company. And what we've seen from the industrial IoT, or we'll call it Web 4, it's a long pull, right? You need systems integrators. There is no board edict to have an IoT play, right?
Right.
What they say is, I want to improve distribution efficiency by 75%, or I want to improve warehousing efficiency by X%. And then how do we do that? Well, we instrument everything. And typically that instrumentation has something with a CPU in it. Anytime you have a CPU, you have and it's connected, there's potential security nightmare for that you've created, and you have to protect it, right? And that's this whole notion of, going from 4 billion endpoints to 4 trillion, right? Everything's going to have a CPU, everything's going to have firmware, and everything can be exploited. So how do I protect it? It's no longer the days of M2M, which was essentially having a dumb sensor on the end, giving you a little bit of data. It wasn't hackable. It's like, hey, we're going to improve security by not having any connectivity, but we can't pull any data off it, so it's almost worthless.
Yeah.
Not worthless in its, you still have to manage the boiler, you have to manage the air conditioning, you have to manage, that one, the one piece of machinery that moves this box from point A to point B on the rollers, but there's no way to look at it holistically and improve your operations. So good stuff, Will. Appreciate that. Hey, let's move into something that is you're really going to love. But Paul, the first thing I want you to do is explain to the audience what a qubit is. So let's start there.
Okay, qubits are what basically the fundamental computational unit of quantum computers. And there's different types of qubits, trapped ion qubits, superconducting, neutral atom, helium. I mean, there's all kinds of different, basically use it to for the quantum operations of entanglement and of superposition. So
appreciate that. So it's logical that 3 logical qubits are better than 2 and better than 1, right?
That's right. And sometimes better
I knew
than
that. See, I know quantum.
It's about all I know.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems that right now holding quantum back a little bit is the fact that qubits are very sensitive to errors, and errors are caused by noise and environmental issues and other qubits, and we really don't have a way to do error correction yet. And we need error correction in order to get fault-tolerant computers. We can get millions of qubits to do the big tasks like climate change and material science and big logistic problems and everything. So we need a lot of qubits. So correction is a big subject within quantum. Quantinium has been doing a lot of research on error correction using logical qubits. Logical qubits are formed by basically a bunch of physical qubits. It makes one logical qubits. And Quantinium has been able to, they're working with Delft and the University of Stuttgart, and they've come up with a way to use 3 logical qubits to do the bit addition of 1. And they've successfully done it, and they come up with some operations internally, pretty geeky, with the type of gates they're using that allows them to do this. But the important part is the gates that they're using this for are very important for Shor's algorithm and a bunch of other really important quantum work down the road in the future. So the the logical qubits basically encode across many physical qubits, basically to protect the information in the qubit. So IBM is doing a lot of work on error correction, error mitigation. Just about everybody's doing work on error correction. So this is a good step forward, and if they can extend this to more qubits, I think we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, it seems like every breakthrough, we just keep getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
I like the expression that IBM uses, right? It's no longer about quantum supremacy. It's really about doing something useful in the enterprise or government or whatever. And the way that this is panning out and developing is exactly like a high performance computing market, right? With simulation of things, we've seen some breakthroughs in search, but ultimately that has to get into ERP and HCM and financial systems and things like that to get people other than the U.S. government and military, people who care about that stuff to get engaged. But it's great to see Quantinuum coming up with breakthroughs. It's amazing a company like Quantinuum and the size that it's at can keep doing this stuff. It's super impressive.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go in and talk about a company we rarely talk about.
Yeah.
And that is no, wait a second. We've hit them twice, haven't we?
We've spoken about them, Pat, in the past, and so I'm going to double down on observability on this podcast. So
sweet.
Gigamon. When I look at the observability market, I mean, it is somewhat fragmented and crowded, and so that's why the Cisco and Splunk deal is so compelling. But Gigamon has been quietly kind of carving out a little niche for themselves, and they focus on what they call their deep observability pipeline. And so what's really interesting is they're sort of leveraging this architecture to deliver a new capability that they're calling Precryption. And I wrote a Forbes article a few weeks ago, and I kind of positioned it as a sixth sense, and from the perspective that what Precryption does, it leverages open architecture to basically provide threat visibility and encrypted cloud traffic. And so it doesn't require key collection. It's using a concept called perfect forward secrecy, or PFS. And that's a capability that ensures only intended endpoints can decrypt messages. So, and when I looked at it on the surface, I shared, some initial feedback that, hey, is this kind of exploiting sort of a backdoor to be able to do this? But the company assured me that no, they're leveraging standard, API calls and that sort of thing to accomplish this. But they understand the concern that customers may have, so they're providing data masking and other capabilities to ensure that customers are comfortable with using it. But it's really super innovative and differentiated from my perspective, and I thought it was worth raising on our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you had me at Precryption.
Yeah.
Right, which I've never heard of in my entire life. Is Precryption architecture or is it real tech? Well,
it's kind of architecture, for sure, but it is sort of complicated and heady. So I would recommend, any of our listeners or viewers, if you're interested, go hit my Twitter handle at Willtown Tech, or X handle as we call it these days. And I provide a lot more depth and detail on it. So
yeah, check out the show notes too. It's on there as well. If you're in on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, we have the show notes right there for you. Hey, let's get into our last topic. By the way, one thing I really appreciate is that we stay on time here. There's other podcasts that I do that's like, we are never on time. 5 minutes a topic, talks to 10. I think it's like the size of the ego, right, is directly related to how much people talk. And so I want to tell you, I appreciate that about all of you.
less
Thank
is more, right? Less is more sometimes.
Less is more, and more is Moorhead. And by the way, I had a tech company. I was on the phone, and they're like, we just need more insights on this. And I'm like, yeah,
Bingo.
you do. By the way, it was actually on a call with 20 of my competitors, right? I'm like, yes, you do.
I love it. I love it.
Right. There we go. And somebody even said on the same call, more heads are better than one. And I'm like, yeah, more heads are better than one. So anyways, how weird is that? Is that the worst dad humor ever?
It's good stuff. Good dad jokes, Pat.
Hey, let's go into the final topic here. Paul, this has got to be your topic here. But does AI, is AI so smart it knows when it hallucinates, and it's just kind of like playing games with us here?
Yeah, this is really an important topic in AI, and that's the reason
it is huge.
It is. Regardless of what you do, basically, AI hallucinates, and it hallucinates in different ways. It hallucinates on the content that you're working on, it hallucinates on references, but it's very important, especially when you get down to medicine and finance and law and journalism, and you don't need hallucinations in there.
Paul, can I interrupt you for a sec? A great example is what happened. There was a lawyer who used raw OpenAI and ChatGPT to go in, and it made up cases that never existed.
Oh, wow.
And this guy went in, and the judge like literally just lambasted him, and I think fined him. And I think the New York Law Board is probably considering disbarring.
Right?
Yeah. So that's the type of thing we're talking about with hallucination. So sorry, Paul, I just wanted to interject that.
That's okay. I thought everybody kind of hallucinated. So
I know I do, but I'm not a bot yet.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second. I apologize.
Good. This is real time. This is a live show, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This particular research paper I was reading was really kind of focused on basically on titles and references that are associated with. If you try and do don't try and do an important research project on AI, because you're likely to get some hallucinations. You go to one of your sources that it points you to, and it might say page not found, and a good likelihood it does. That's a hallucination. And they found that the AI tends to hallucinate more on, if it makes up an author, it's more than likely to hallucinate on a page source. So you just can't. One way to try and avoid it is the fact that if you check every thing with a grounding source to try and verify the data, then you get better results, but it still hallucinates even when you're using grounding. Yeah. So it's like walking, imagine yourself staring at a canyon about 3,000 feet deep, and you've got an iron walkway between one side of the canyon to the other side of the canyon. As you get about in the middle, you find out that part of that's made out of wood because they had a bad engineer. And if you step on it, there's a very low probability you're going to go crashing through. But if you do, it's got disastrous results. Mm-hmm. So improbable as it is, if you rely on something that is important and you're doing it through AI, you may get hallucinated data. So,
well, it's interesting. Hey, just so I understand this, you're saying that even if I ground against it, very focused and good data, it can still hallucinate. Is that, or increases the chances of hallucination?
No, it decreases. Yeah, no, it decreases the chance of hallucination.
Got it.
Depends on the content. Yeah, it depends on the content. The better your content, the more specific your content, the less chance there is of hallucination. This paper quoted one percentage, and I don't remember what it was, but it's very small. What it did do, it said it consistently, like this was on references, it consistently identified authors for real references, but it also admits that it hallucinates sometimes. You can say, "Is that real?" And it'll say, "Not that I made it up, but it'll say it's not real." So,
by the way, what you just outlined is exactly the way that enterprises are looking at it, which is, hey, let's take an open source model that is not necessarily perfect or even documented, like a Llama 2. Like, by the way, Llama 2 and GPT-4, they don't actually tell you what data they pulled in. Yeah. And for that matter, the first Titan embedded model from AWS. Interestingly enough, what IBM did is IBM came out with their model and actually told you the source, and they wrote a white paper on how they parsed the data to come up with what they did, and they indemnified you from being sued from a potential claimant on copyright. But this thing is heating up a big time here. But in the end, enterprises are not going to use any of this if it's going to hallucinate and give a bad answer to a customer, or Matt, AI ops, right? Imagine, hey, I'm going to shut down everything and everybody, and we've got Skynet essentially, right?
Yeah.
On that, and you're not even able to pull the plug because you've got solar energy or nuclear fusion that Skynet controls too, right? Yeah. Anyways, I'm kind of a let's push tech to the edge until we break something type of person, but no, this is really good stuff. And in the end, this is what enterprise care about. Is you have to minimize hallucination. And it's funny, the head of OpenAI, Sam Altman, was on a panel with Mark Benioff from Salesforce that I had attended, and he really talked about why it's good that it hallucinates, right? See, machine learning and deep learning have they have no element of creativity, right? You tell it to spot, the monkey swing from the tree with the banana in its hand, and you ask it, what is this? And it'll tell you, but you can't tell it to go off and, put 7 French bulldogs on a show jumper horse jumping over with a red hat on, right? It's just not going to do that. It doesn't have the capability. So in a way, it's pulling in kind of the negative of humanity as well as the positivity. So I'm just hoping the Patbot has better personality than I. Like, he's nicer all the time. He's not as short with people or in bad moods. That's what I'm hoping for. So, guys,
we can all dream, Pat. We can all dream big dreams.
Let me leave you just a couple things on this paper I thought was interesting. One is that they think that models might be able to, at some point, realize that they're hallucinating and correct it. They also think that they have an awareness of some sort that they may be hallucinating. So that's kind of spooky to me. But anyway, so it looked like them, further research, I think we're going to correct it.
I'd call that the bullshit meter.
Yeah. There we go. We just got the explicit mark on our podcast for this week. By the way, I try not to use the P word, the reason we are all locked up, because I don't want that flag either. But anyways, no, I appreciate it, folks. Listen, we made it 11 episodes without getting canceled. Maybe we're going to go 12 here. I don't know, but I just want to appreciate you guys showing up. And I know the audience does. I get a lot of comments on this podcast. And by the way, we do have a sponsored version. If you're interested, all you tech brands out there, where we will interview executives, we'll pontificate. Hey, if you want to sponsor this podcast, you can as well. We may not say what you want us to say, but but
we'll wear patches on our shirts, right?
Exactly. Appreciate y'all. Take care. Hey guys, have a great weekend.